and we're about to talk to Tony Critch. How you going there, Tony?
Yeah, you're not too bad, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I was driving past and I noticed that you're fixing up these old cattle yards from way back. It's fantastic to see. Could you tell us a bit about the history of them?
Well, so I do history on Tenindewa, and conveniently with technology now you can go back and link into Trove on the internet and go back and read all the old newspapers, and surprisingly enough, and God knows why, there was hundreds and hundreds of articles written about Tenindewa. And one correspondent, he probably started in about 1910, and I suppose in some ways you could call him a professional grizzler, because there was hardly 2 or 3 weeks went by and he wasn't complaining about no cattle yards at Tenindewa, no sheep yards at Tenindewa.
Yeah.
And he would go on some occasions to talk about how Bill Smith or Charlie Brown had loaded 420 sheep and lifted them onto the train.
Right.
So he stuck at it, and finally, I think...
because they didn't have the yards at the time.
There was no yards here. So,
right.
So even though they're almost an insignificant thing, there is a lot of written history on these yards, surprisingly enough.
And you're involved with a website for Tenindewa to promote it, aren't you?
Yeah, I am, Ben. Yeah. So I sort of Tenindewa's centennial year was 1914.
Yep.
So we used it for excuse to start a lot of things, and that was one of them. So we started that thing in 1914, and we've been writing up stories of families at Tenindewa and been to Tenindewa and etc. etc.
So what's the website for that, Tony?
Just tenindewa.com.
Oh, right. Okay. So people can look that up easily.
Yeah. There's hundreds and hundreds of names in there. Whoever you are, I'll be surprised if you haven't got a relative in there somewhere.
So there used to be sheep yards here too, did there?
Yeah, well, they were sheep.
This is part.
You can see the 2 levels.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that was to do double decks, of course. But they used to. I left school in '64, I think, or '65. I loaded, so it was up until the early '70s. They were still being used, because a lot of commodities were regulated to rail. You had to send stuff on rail, whether you liked it or not.
That was like that in my time. But to get people to cart our super, had to get the railways to do it. Yeah. So there's also a kind of a good shop here too, wasn't there?
Yeah, the old shop over the road there. Well, I guess that started about 1910, and then they upgraded in about 1930, and there it still stands, what's left of it, and it's finished in, it must have been 85, I think.
Yeah.
And it was, in fact, the reason it closed, it was the last manual exchange in Western Australia, once the exchange went, really the business went. Well. Yeah, and the post office,
So how far are you from Mullewa here, roughly?
We're about 80 k's from Geraldton, so we must be about 30 k's, 25 k's from Mullewa. Yeah.
So I imagine you used to do most of your shopping at Tenindewa.
Oh yeah, we did everything. You'd put the order in those days. Mum would write the order out, and the old man would put it in down here as you go around to check the sheep or something, and she'd come back the next day and pick it all up in a big cardboard box.
Oh yeah. That's better service than nowadays, isn't it?
Absolutely, and you got a real good conversation to go with it with Mr. Foster and Mrs. Foster. They were very personable people. Yeah. So you'd pay for that today.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, good to have a chat to you, Tony. Thanks for that.
Yeah, keep up the good work, Ben. Good on you.
Okay.